Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're doing It Came From the Net. Topic of this It Came From the Network, All-Star Rock and Wrestling Saturday Spectacular. Now this isn't a specific episode of Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, although there is a bit of that in here. What this is I believe the year was 1984. This was the preview that CBS put up for their upcoming Saturday morning lineup coming for the new fall season. I believe this was a week before it debuted. So they ran a little special. The reason I'm doing this is it's very heavily wrestling related. Not only do we have highlights from Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling, the show is being hosted by Rowdy Roddy Piper. Before I get into this, there is going to be a link down here in the description if you want to watch this thing in its entirety. I will save my recommendations on it till the end of it just to, keep you watching. But if you'd like to watch it, it will be down there, and I'll try to remember that for the end of the video to tell you again. I'm going to do this a little differently because it's not a wrestling show. Instead of rating every segment on a 1 to 5 scale, I'm going to rate the entire show on a 1 to 5 scale, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Basically, the whole thing is one big ball of wax. With that being said, let's jump right into it. We start off with Scott Osborne, who's outside. He basically says that Roddy Piper has forced Hervé Villechaize out of being the host and has taken over the show. If you don't remember Hervé, and I'm probably pronouncing his last name wrong, he was tattooed from Love Boat, or Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island, it wasn't Love Boat, but he was a big star at the time on one of the biggest shows on TV. We start off, we get a little bit of a highlight package of Roddy Piper. We see a little thing with Hervé trying to get in, and I'm just going to call him Hervé through here. We see him trying to get in. Then we go right into a monologue with Roddy Piper, which is kind of like a similar thing to what you would see on a nighttime talk show. Pretty funny stuff here. The crowd obviously was either being told when to boo and cheer because they were booing him relentlessly even when he was being funny, which makes perfect sense because he was a heel at the time. He shows us a highlight of the Cyndi Lauper Goonies video. I forget the name of the exact song, but it was a song she had in the Goonies, which had like him, Freddie Blassie, Iron Sheik, Nikolai Volkov was in the video, Captain Lou was in the video, so they show a little bit of that, just a very small snippet. They come back, and Piper is going to interview one of the greatest basketball players of all time, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Kareem, if you're not familiar, is actually a really funny guy. You can see it in the Airplane movies. He even was pretty funny on the show Dave just recently. I think the last year or two he did the guest appearance there. Really funny, really engaging. Him and Piper played well off of each other. That rolls us right into a clip for the Berenstein Bears, and yes, one of the biggest Mandela effects of all time, from their books and their cartoon. And this is a cartoon I used to watch back in the day. It wasn't the best, but it was okay. Showed a little clip of that. Then we see another thing with Hervé trying to get back in. Again, that's going to be a running thing here. As they go to break, it shows Hervé again. Then we come back and Piper's in the crowd. He's with his fan club, which is 2 guys that are kind of dressed like him. This was surprisingly wholesome because I felt like Piper should have ran them down and made fun of them for being marks, but he pretty much praised them and said how great they were. I kind of wonder if they were really his fan club, that they just dressed up more outrageously. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember the Piper fan club. I'm sure there was one. Most wrestlers of the time had a fan club, even if they were heels. After that, we go to a pre-taped interview with Hulk Hogan, who leads us right into a clip for Rock and Wrestling, which, if you've seen it, it's a great show. It's goofy, it's 80s, it's campy, it's silly, but I enjoyed it. I still enjoy it to this day. I wish they would put it back on the WWE Network, because where I find it, or Peacock, because where I find it now is on YouTube, and it's disjointed. You don't always find all the episodes. You can find some here and there. Some of them are heavily edited, some of them are poor quality, while the ones that they had on the network before Hulk Hogan got in trouble were pristine. They were just as they aired back in the 80s, because they have all of the film. That was followed up with a studio performance by New Edition. They sang the song My Secret, which was one of their minor hits. I'm guessing it was their new single at the time. It wasn't as big as some of their other songs like Mr. Telephone Man or Candy Girl, but it was a good song. I really enjoy New Edition. They're one of my favorite R&B bands of all time, so I love seeing them here. After that, we got an interview with them and Piper, and they seemed a little bit nervous, like this may have been one of their first national TV shows, or Maybe they were actually fans of wrestling and they were a little bit nervous being there with Piper. That led us right into a preview for a cartoon called The Wuzzles, which I don't think ran very long. I kind of remember it. I don't remember it exactly. It looks very familiar from the clip they showed. I'm sure I watched it at some point and it just wasn't one of my favorites. Other shows on here I really did like the Berenstain Bears and Rockin' Wrestling, and some of the other ones we're going to mention later. After that, we get a retelling of King Lear with Piper serving as a king. Captain Lou Albano's there. There's some women there. Leads us to Pee Wee Herman coming out, and basically Pee Wee becomes the king. I just love this. If you can't tell this was something that happened in the 80s by the names we're saying here, I mean, we got New Edition, Cyndi Lauper, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Pee Wee Herman, Rowdy Roddy Piper. This is so 80s and such a time capsule, and we're not even to the end of this. It even gets more of a time capsule. After that little piece, Pee Wee comes over and does his interview with Piper. He shows him how to make a sock puppet off of the socks that he took off his feet, which I kind of thought was a little weird because Piper put on one of his socks on his hand. I don't know that I would put on somebody else's socks that they were just wearing on my hand. Just saying. A little bit odd. But okay, whatever. It's Pee Wee Herman. You're going to do what Pee Wee does. And I kind of wonder if Mick Foley's seen this and this was some of the inspiration for Socko. That was a perfect segue to lead us into a preview for the Muppet Babies, another show that I loved. I love the Muppets. I love pretty much every incarnation of the Muppets. I'll watch anything that they put out even to this day because I grew up on the Muppets and I think they're hilarious. Then we come back, Piper and Captain Lou are talking. They, basically are saying that they're feuding with each other, but Piper's willing to patch it up and mend the fences. As Captain Lou goes to sit down, his chair breaks, which that leads us right into another preview, this one for multiple cartoons. First we had the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, and I've never played the Dungeons and Dragons board game. I've played the Dungeons and Dragons video game. I played a couple of the video games, but I remember watching this cartoon, and again, this was another one of those cartoons that I really enjoyed back in the day. Then we got a little preview for Land of the Lost, which was I believe a Sid and Marty Krofft show, which was kind of cool. It was live action mixed with claymation, where they had dinosaurs, and it was cool. Trust me, it's better than I could describe it here. Lastly, we had a preview for Charlie Brown and Snoopy, which is kind of funny because I always thought of it as Peanuts, and I know some of their other things are called Peanuts, and the comic strip is Peanuts. But it was kind of funny that even then, I remember this cartoon because who didn't watch Charlie Brown back in the day? I could have swore it was called Peanuts. Maybe that's a Mandela effect, along with the Berenstain Bears. After that, we come back with Patti LaBelle singing her song Stir It Up, which I believe was in one of the Beverly Hills Cop movies. I forget what movie. It's definitely from a movie. I want to say it was Beverly Hills Cop. It may have been something else, but it's a good song. Again, not one of her best songs, probably the newest song that she had at the time. She does her little interview. She's very contagious with Piper, almost to a point where you sort of wonder if Patti LaBelle knew that was kayfabe or not, because she's very kind of rude to him in a way that makes me think that maybe she believed that Piper was his gimmick, or maybe he was really a jerk to her. Who knows? After that, we get a preview for a show called Story Break, which I don't remember at all, but from what I've seen of this clip, it seems to be something where it would start off in live action, where they would start to tell a story and then it would go into a cartoon. Then we come to the final part of the show where we have Piper bring out a Cyndi Lauper impersonator, which is a bigger woman, and that's the joke because Piper says she looks like Lauper. It was a different time. These jokes were more normalized back then. That leads to a door opening up on the set behind Piper with the real Cyndi Lauper coming out, where Hervé Villechaize take over the show a little bit too late. They say they're going to do the show in another studio, which I don't think they did. I don't remember, and I don't know if there's a follow-up. Maybe there was another preview show that Hervé was the host of. I don't remember. Then we end out the show with just Piper and his two fan club members standing there. They were pretty much telling him he's the greatest thing in the world. He was eating it up. Overall, I thought the show was good. There was a lot of funny parts. Piper and Kareem was really funny going back and forth. Cyndi Lauper and Piper are always great together. Some of these shows are so iconic, so memorable, such a big part of my childhood that I watched them back then millions of times over. This was a perfect time capsule of the mid-'80s. I mean, we got the Muppets, We got Charlie Brown, we got Pee Wee Herman, Dungeons and Dragons, Roddy Piper, Kareem, who was part of the Lakers, who were one of the biggest teams in basketball in that time. Fantasy Island's represented here with Hervé. I mean, this is quintessential mid-80s. I would definitely recommend checking it out, especially if you're of my age or around my age and remember these shows and some of these people from when you were a kid. It's definitely going to put a smile on your face. I would recommend checking it out. Again, there's going to be a link down here in the description. Overall, I'm going to give the show a 4. I thought it was really, really good. There were a couple things that didn't hold up as well. New Edition doing an interview, that wasn't great. They seemed very nervous. The Patti LaBelle interview seemed a little bit off too, but I like both of those people as singers. I mean, I love New Edition as a band, and I love Patti LaBelle as a singer. So I'll give them a little bit because their songs were good. I think it was just a bit off of being a perfect show. It was wacky, it was goofy. It's something that only could have came out in that time. You couldn't even recreate this now with stars of today doing this. It wouldn't work. People wouldn't give a crap about it. But at the time, this was probably one of the most watched shows of that Saturday morning. Like I said, just a fun variety show type show. Very interesting, very enjoyable. Again, given that being said, let's smash that like button, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If you see where it says join, that's how you become a member. Becoming a member definitely helps me out. If you made it all the way to the end here, let me know what your favorite show was that they previewed here. Was it Bernstein Bears? Was it Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling? The Wuzzles, Muppet Babies, Dungeons and Dragons, Land of the Lost, Charlie Brown and Snoopy, or Story Break? Let me know what you think. Hopefully there's some Story Break fans so they can tell me a little bit about it, because I don't really remember it at all. But let me know what you think. Hit me down here in the comments. Let me know what your favorite of those shows was. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been another It Came From the Net.